Anxiety bubbled inside me as I dressed for the company party. I looked in the mirror and adjusted my tie one last time. My reflection stared back at me with a nervous smile. It was an opportunity to show everyone how successful I was, and having Amanda by my side would be the icing on the cake. She has always been my safe haven, the perfect companion for these social events. Today is going to be a great day, I thought, as the shine of my polished shoes reflected the sunlight streaming through the window. As soon as we arrived at the place, the atmosphere was full of laughter and engaging music. The lights flashed at a frantic pace, creating a celebratory atmosphere. I felt confidence growing within me. "You look amazing, Daniel," said a colleague as he shook my hand. I smiled at him, trying to hide the anxiety that still accompanied me. "Thanks. Amanda looks stunning too, doesn't she?" I pointed to my wife, who was chatting excitedly with a group of people. The party continued its course, and I felt more and more at ease. But as the night progressed, I noticed something strange. When I looked at Amanda and Lucas, my coworker, an uncomfortable feeling began to settle in. They were too close, laughing in a way that seemed intimate. "This is nothing," I tried to convince myself, but the seed of doubt had already been planted. "Maybe I'm just being paranoid," I thought, trying to shake the thought away. It was then that, in a moment of distraction, I saw them dancing. Soft music filled the air as lights moved around them. The way Lucas held Amanda's waist and looked into her eyes made me feel a knot in my stomach. "This can't be happening," I muttered to myself. My heart accelerated. Their dance was more than just a moment of relaxation. It was an expression of something I never wanted to believe existed. "Daniel, are you okay?" Amanda approached, her smile shining in the lights. I tried to force a smile back, but the truth was I was fighting a storm of emotions. "Yes, of course. I was just thinking about how great the party is," I replied, trying to sound carefree. But the feeling of betrayal began to erode my confidence. Lucas's laughter beside her echoed in my ears like a warning. The music grew louder, but I could barely pay attention. I looked at them once again, and it was as if a blindfold had been removed from my eyes. What once seemed harmless was now a stab. "They're together, aren't they?" I thought, anger starting to take over me. Amanda and Lucas danced too close, as if the world around them didn't exist. I watched helplessly as my life began to fall apart. "Daniel, come dance," Amanda called, but I remained still, frozen in uncertainty. What could I say? "Are you having fun with your lover?" The words didn't come out. Instead, I opted for a heavy silence that felt like shouting louder than any sentence. The immersive music and flashing lights couldn't hide the betrayal I was finally realizing. The room was full of laughter and conversation, but to me, it had all become a blur. The vibrant colors seemed to fade, and a feeling of despair settled in my chest. How could I be so naive? I thought, as I watched Amanda and Lucas get lost in their own world. The whirlwind of emotions inside me became unbearable, and the only thing I wanted at that moment was to understand what was happening. The music continued to play, but to me, time seemed to stand still. The heat of betrayal spread through every part of my body as I tried to process the image of my wife in another man's arms. It was as if the world was spinning around me, but I remained still, trapped in the cruel reality unfolding before me. And so, the gala that was supposed to be a moment of celebration became the beginning of a nightmare that I never imagined living. My heart was racing, and the party music seemed like a distant echo in my mind. I approached Amanda and Lucas, who were so close they became a single shadow under the bright lights. The confused expression on Amanda's face quickly turned to fear, while Lucas, with a cocky smile, stared at me as if there was nothing wrong with his behavior. The tension in the air was palpable, and for a moment, the noise of the party disappeared completely, giving way to a deafening silence. "Daniel!" Amanda exclaimed, her voice shaking as she tried to move away from Lucas. "This isn't what it seems." "So what is it, Amanda?" I responded, my voice low but filled with anger. "You two dancing like you're alone in this place? Do you really think I would believe your lies?" Lucas, in his defense, crossed his arms and smiled disdainfully. "Calm down, man. It's not the end of the world. It's just a dance. Just a dance? I laughed, but there was no humor in my laughter. Do you have the nerve to address me like that? You're a coworker, Lucas, not a lover. What's happening between you is unacceptable. Amanda looked at Lucas and, for an instant, I saw a gleam of complicity in her eyes. It burned like acid in my veins. Daniel, you don't understand. I feel like I'm losing control of my life. Lucas has been a friend, someone I could talk to. A friend? I interrupted, anger consuming me. Would you rather call someone who betrays you in broad daylight a friend? You're disappointing me, Amanda. I can't believe you would do that to me. The words came out of my mouth like stones, heavy and painful. Amanda started to cry, and I wondered if the tears were tears of regret or genuine pain. Please, Daniel, listen to me. I didn't mean for this to happen. I just felt so alone. Alone? I said, incredulity showing in my voice. What about me? What am I to you? Just a facade for your perfect life? Or an excuse to feel less lonely? Lucas intervened, trying to keep the situation under control, but his presence only irritated them more. Let's resolve this in a civilized manner. Daniel, you need to relax. It's a party, not a court. A court? I laughed again, but this time bitterly. Do you really think you can get away with this, Lucas? You and Amanda are playing with my life. I don't know how you can look at yourself in the mirror. Amanda, still crying, looked at me with a mix of despair and anger. Daniel, please don't do this. I promise I'll talk to you later. We can work everything out. Solve. I said, voice growing firmer. There is nothing to be resolved. You have broken the trust we have built over the years. What you have done is unforgivable. At that moment, a piercing clarity hit me. I could no longer bear this pain. I no longer wanted to be the man who always believed in empty promises. Amanda, I'm going to divorce you. Tomorrow. She was in shock, her mouth open as if she wanted to protest, but no words came out. Lucas, on the other hand, looked pleased, as if he knew our world was falling apart. You can't do that, Daniel. Think of the consequences. Consequences? I laughed again, but there was no joy. The consequences are already here, Lucas. You and Amanda decided to play with fire, and now what's left is the ashes. With that, I walked away, still feeling the anger pulsing through my veins. The party continued around me, but I had entered a new world, a world where betrayal and disloyalty were exposed. My heart was heavy, but at the same time, I felt a growing determination. Tomorrow, everything would change. I would no longer be a deceived man. I would take the reins of my life back. I woke up that morning with a weight on my heart that felt like more than I could bear. The sun came through the window, but the light couldn't dispel the darkness that had settled in my mind. The images of the company party still danced before me, like lingering shadows that wouldn't leave me alone. Amanda and Lucas dancing, the way she smiled at him, as if the world around her had disappeared. A lump in my throat prevented me from swallowing the pain and betrayal that crushed me. How could I be so naive? How could I trust her? I got up from the bed, put on my shoes, and walked towards the mirror. The reflection showed a different man from the one who had gone to the party the night before. The deep circles under his eyes and the expression of despair were new to me. I needed to act. I couldn't let this betrayal go unnoticed. The decision to divorce Amanda had already taken shape in my mind, but I needed something more than a simple desire for freedom. I wanted her to feel the consequences of her actions. I went to the lawyer's office, a longtime friend who had always supported me. The streets were busy, but I barely paid attention to the traffic or people passing by. My focus was on a single task, putting an end to this story. Upon arriving at the office, I was greeted by Carla, Dr. Mendez's secretary. She looked at me with concern, noticing my condition. Daniel, you seem worried. What happened? She asked, with a sympathetic look. I need to talk to Dr. Mendez. It's urgent, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady even though I felt vulnerability seeping through my tone. As soon as I entered the office, Dr. Mendez greeted me with a firm handshake. He was a good lawyer, and I trusted him. I sat down and, bluntly, explained the situation. I want to start the divorce process, I said. my voice shaking slightly. He paused, watching me carefully. Daniel, are you sure? This can be a painful and complicated process. I know, I replied decidedly, but I can't keep living this lie. Amanda betrayed me, and I'm not going to let her get away with it. Dr. Mendez began writing down information, and as he talked about the details of the process, my mind wandered. I remembered all the moments I shared with Amanda, the promises we made to each other. Each of them now seemed empty, like an echo in a dark tunnel. The lawyer asked a few questions about assets and property division, but I barely paid attention. My focus was on something bigger, the need for justice. As I left the office, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I looked and saw Amanda's name on the screen. My heart raced, but I didn't respond. I didn't want to hear another attempt from her to justify the unjustifiable. What could she say that would change what happened? Instead, I ignored the call and went on my way, determined not to give her the chance to manipulate my feelings. The city was bustling, but I walked in a trance, absorbing the cold reality of betrayal. Every step I took was a step towards regaining my dignity. Every face that crossed my path seemed to remind me that life went on, even when mine had fallen apart. The sun was shining, but I didn't feel its heat. There was a void in me that I knew would take time to fill. When I got home, I realized I needed a plan, not just for the divorce, but also for what I would do next. I wanted Amanda to understand that her actions had consequences and that I wouldn't just be a passive victim in her story. Determination was growing inside me, and I knew I had to prepare myself for what was to come. The morning after the party was marked by deafening silence. I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, the cup of coffee in my hand shaking slightly. I don't know if it was due to the cold or the storm of emotions that consumed me. The smell of fresh coffee didn't bring me comfort. It was just a memory of better times. Amanda and Lucas, the betrayal that played out in my mind like a horror movie, made me feel sick. How could I be so blind? The question echoed in my head as I recalled every look exchanged, every laugh shared between the two. The day progressed, and with each passing hour, the anger within me grew like a ravenous flame. I needed to do something, not just to get revenge, but to regain my dignity. It was then that I decided to seek support. I joined a support group that dealt with cheating and breakups. In the first few moments, I felt like an intruder, but as stories of pain and betrayal were shared, I realized I was not alone. "I can't believe he did this to me," said a woman with brown hair, her eyes red from crying. Her voice was shaking, and I could feel the pain emanating from her. "I went through that too. It's hard, but you'll get through it." I tried to comfort her, even though I was still fighting my own demons. The other participants, although strangers, seemed to understand my pain in a way no one else could. As the meetings became more frequent, a friendship grew between us. There was Lucas, a middle-aged man who had an acid sense of humor, and Clara, a young woman who still believed in love despite her traumas. They became my allies in a plan that was taking shape in my mind. "Daniel, you have to expose the truth," Lucas suggested in one of our meetings. "Don't let them get you down. You deserve everyone to know who these people are." His words resonated with me. That's what I needed to do. The idea of revealing Amanda and Lucas' betrayal was not just a form of revenge, but a way to restore my self-esteem. I started to devise a plan. I gathered evidence, messages exchanged between the two, photos that I was able to capture without them noticing. Every detail was a piece of the puzzle that would form the truth I was determined to reveal. "What if you organized a company party? That way, everyone will be there, and you can expose everything at once," suggested Clara, with a contagious sparkle in her eyes. The idea seemed absurd, but as I thought more about it, it made sense. A party, an event where everyone would be together, would be the perfect opportunity to expose Amanda and Lucas' betrayal. I planned everything meticulously, from the presentation to the speech I would give. I wanted every word to be filled with emotion, but also with determination. "Daniel, are you sure you're ready for this?" Lucas questioned me, worried. For me, and for everyone they deceived," I replied, firmly. The weight on my back felt a little lighter as I shared my plan with them. With every detail I organized, a new sense of empowerment began to grow within me. I was in control of my life again, and the idea of seeing Amanda and Lucas exposed in front of everyone filled me with a satisfaction I hadn't felt in a long time. The countdown to the party began, and as the date approached, my anxiety was mixed with unwavering determination. I would no longer be the victim. After all, it was time for the truth to come out, and I was prepared to face the consequences. The party room was filled with laughter and lively conversation, but to me it all seemed like a big act. The brightness of the lights reflected off the faces of colleagues, while soft music filled the air. I was there, standing, watching everything, but I couldn't ignore the whirlwind of emotions that consumed me. My mind revolved around a single thought, the betrayal unfolding before my eyes. Amanda and Lucas were dancing. The image of them together was like a dagger stuck in my chest. The way she leaned into him, laughing at something I couldn't hear, made me feel a mixture of anger and pain. With a Herculean effort, I took a deep breath and approached. My heart pounded like a drum at a rock concert, and every step I took seemed to echo in the silence of my mind. "Daniel, what are you doing here?" Amanda asked, with a smile that tried to hide her nervousness. Lucas was there, next to her, with a look of arrogance that irritated me deeply. "I was just admiring your dancing. It looks like you guys are having a special time," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral, but anger came through with every word. "We were just having fun," Lucas interjected, with a confidence that made me even angrier. "Isn't it, Amanda?" She hesitated for a moment. Her gaze dropped to the floor, and in that moment I knew that what I was seeing was the unvarnished truth. "Daniel, she began, but I didn't let her finish. "Are you going to tell me this is just a friendship? That you're not doing anything wrong?" "I see everything, Amanda." The music stopped, and the noise around us turned into a nervous murmur. All eyes were on us. "Just listen to me, please," Amanda pleaded, her voice shaking. "I didn't want this to happen. And when did you decide it was acceptable to cheat on me in front of everyone? You have no idea how humiliating this is for me." I felt adrenaline rush through my veins. Every word I spoke was like a blow, and I wanted her to feel the pain I was feeling. Lucas tried to intervene again. "Come on, Daniel. This is neither the time nor the place for that." "No, Luke. It's exactly the right place. Everyone here needs to know who you really are. You need to know the truth." I looked around, seeing the surprised faces of my colleagues. What I was doing was risky, but the pain of betrayal burned within me like an unquenchable fire. Suddenly, an idea started to pop into my mind. I could use this party, this audience, to expose the truth once and for all. "I'm going to do something you'll never forget," I declared, my voice firm. I turned to the crowd, who were now watching expectantly. The night passed quickly, and I prepared myself for what came next. With the help of some close friends, I organized a presentation. Images, messages, everything I had collected during the weeks of investigation. The evidence of betrayal was there, ready to be revealed. When the moment finally arrived, I took the stage, my heart racing but my determination unwavering. "Guys, thanks for being here tonight. I have something important to share with you." The murmur of the crowd was silenced, and Amanda and Lucas's eyes met. The tension between us was palpable. I clicked on the remote, and the first image appeared on the screen. It was a message between Amanda and Lucas, one of the many secrets they had tried to keep hidden. I could feel my palms sweating and everyone's eyes on me, but I wasn't going to back down. Here is the real story behind the smiles and the dances. See for yourselves. With each click, the truth unfolded, and the room filled with shocked murmurs. I was about to free not only myself, but everyone who had been deceived by this couple. The impact of the revelations began to take over the environment, and the feeling of control that I had lost was gradually reestablished. The party atmosphere was electrically tense. The room, once filled with laughter and excitement, now seemed like a battlefield, where the newly revealed truth echoed like thunder. I watched the screen, where images of Amanda and Lucas dancing alternated with messages they exchanged, revealing the betrayal that I had tried to ignore for so long. The growing murmur among my coworkers intensified, and I felt a mix of relief and anger pulsing inside me. "Daniel, you can't do this," Lucas shouted, his voice full of disbelief and despair. He tried, unsuccessfully, to maintain his posture in front of everyone, but the truth was that his words were as empty as his morals. "You don't know what you're saying." "I know exactly what I'm saying, Lucas," I replied, my voice steady and controlled. "You are not just a coworker, you are a traitor, and what you did to my wife is unacceptable." Amanda, standing next to me, looked at me with a mix of shock and despair. His expression was that of someone who realized his cards were on the table. "Daniel, please listen to me. This is not what it seems." His voice was shaking, but I was no longer willing to listen to his justifications. "No, Amanda. You had the opportunity to be honest, and you chose to lie. Now, there is no going back." The feeling of power I was experiencing was new and refreshing. The weight of betrayal, which had once crushed me, now felt light, as if I were finally freeing myself from invisible chains. My classmates' gazes were fixed on us, and I could see the mix of shock and empathy on their faces. Some whispered among themselves, while others seemed as surprised as I felt. The room was almost palpably silent, except for the sound of Lucas, who was desperately trying to defend himself. "Daniel, you know this wasn't serious. It was just fun, a mistake?" He gestured, his arrogance now replaced by fear. "I am your friend." "Friend? That's not friendship, Lucas," I said, my voice rising in intensity. "A friend does not betray. Don't get involved with someone else's wife. You are not even worthy of being called a colleague." Amanda, in a last-ditch effort, advanced towards me, her hands outstretched in a gesture of supplication. "Daniel, I love you. I made a mistake, but we can fix it. Shall we talk in private?" "To talk?" I laughed, a bitter sound that reflected no joy. "After all this, do you still think you have the right to ask me to talk? There is no more room for that between us." Lucas's presence at my side seemed increasingly insignificant. He had lost the battle, and we both knew it. When the company manager approached, his gaze was stern. "Lucas, we need to talk in my room. This cannot continue like this." I watched as Lucas was led out, his head hung low in defeat. What I didn't know, actually, was that this would be the end of his career at the company. Amanda, on the other hand, looked lost, as if her life had fallen apart in an instant. What I had done was not just revenge, it was an act of liberation. The murmur of the crowd began to dissipate, and I found myself surrounded by colleagues who came to congratulate me. "Daniel, what you did was brave," one of the colleagues commented. I felt the warmth of approval, the feeling that despite the pain, there was new light emerging in my life. Then, one of the directors approached, with a smile that lit up his face. "Daniel, your performance in this situation was exceptional. I want to discuss a promotion with you. You deserve recognition for your integrity." His words resonated with me like a symphony. The pain of betrayal was still fresh, but there, at that moment, I realized that I could rise up and rebuild my life. Through betrayal, I had found my strength. Forgiveness, perhaps, would come one day, but for now, I was ready to move forward, stronger than ever.